This is not breaking news. This is not a scandal. This is not about one person. Right now, everything looks calm. Jobs are there. Gas is cheap. Markets are smiling back at you. And that calm is the most dangerous part, because the systems that actually decide what happens next are already in motion, quietly, mechanically, without asking your opinion. They don't respond to optimism. They don't care who's in charge. They only respond to math. What you're seeing right now is not stability, it's delay. A delay built from temporary buffers, from costs that haven't shown up yet, from consequences that have been pushed forward on the calendar. And when those buffers run out, the shift won't announce itself. It won't arrive as a headline. It will arrive as a realization. If you want to understand what's really happening before it becomes obvious, stay with me. Because once this clock becomes visible, it's already too late. And the reason that clock exists starts much deeper than today's numbers. What controls this system now is not a person, it's not a party, it's not even a policy, it's momentum. Economic momentum is what happens when decisions made months ago keep producing results long after the decision makers have moved on. It's why the numbers you see today are often describing the past, not the present. Markets don't price reality. They price expectation. Right now, expectations are doing all the work. Expectations that costs can stay contained, that growth can outrun damage, that today's strength will somehow pay for tomorrow's bill. But underneath that confidence, the structure has changed. The system has quietly shifted from producing value to borrowing time, from earning stability to consuming it, from resilience to appearance. And once an economy crosses that line, the indicators you're trained to trust become unreliable. They keep flashing green, even as the foundation thins. The danger isn't collapse. Not yet. The danger is that the system no longer corrects itself early. It waits. And the reason it waits has everything to do with a slow change we were told not to worry about. There was a time when economic stress showed up quickly. Prices moved. Hiring froze. Markets reacted before damage spread. That's not how this system works anymore. What changed is not growth. It's absorption. Costs no longer appear where they're created. They're held, delayed, parked inside balance sheets, inside inventories, inside margins that look stable until they aren't. Before, tariffs raised prices fast. Now, companies swallow them for a while. Before, labor shortages triggered alarms. Now, production strains quietly stretch. Before, pressure on monetary policy sparked immediate backlash. Now, credibility erodes in increments too small to headline. This is the normalization, the most dangerous kind of change, because when stress is spread thin enough, no single moment feels urgent. Nothing breaks loudly. Nothing forces a correction. The system keeps moving forward while silently losing its ability to absorb the next hit. And once absorption replaces adjustment, the timeline matters more than the trigger. Because the longer this delay lasts, the more violent the release becomes. And we've already seen what happens when the delay slips. Then, briefly, the system flinched. Not because of a war, not because of a virus, not because of a natural disaster. Within 48 hours, $5 trillion in market value vanished. The S&P dropped 10%. The NASDAQ fell into bear territory, the worst two-day slide since the pandemic. And then just as quickly it stopped, the markets recovered. They didn't just recover, they erased the damage. New highs followed, relief set in. The shock was reclassified as noise. That's the mistake. Because what mattered wasn't the drop, it was the cause. This wasn't an external hit. This wasn't fate. This was a decision. A policy switch flipped in full view, and the system reacted instantly. Then, crucially, it was walked back, paused, adjusted, softened. And that reversal did something more important than calm investors. It taught the system a lesson. Pressure works, instability is negotiable, and consequences can be delayed. If you're finding this unsettling, stay with me. Because the real damage didn't show up in prices that week. It buried itself somewhere much harder to see. And once it started working, it didn't stop. Here's what's really happening behind the calm numbers. Costs are moving, they're just not landing where you can see them yet. Tariffs don't disappear, they transfer. A tax at the border becomes a margin cut at the importer, then a delayed price hike at the retailer, then a smaller raise that never comes to the worker. The bill moves, it doesn't vanish. At the same time, labor is getting scarcer. Not in theory, in warehouses, on farms, on construction sites. Fewer workers mean higher wages in the short term. Higher wages mean higher production costs. Those costs pile up next to the tariff costs. Now, add the final layer, monetary credibility. When markets believe inflation will be controlled, they stay calm. When that belief cracks, they demand protection. Higher yields, shorter patience, less forgiveness for uncertainty. These three forces don't collide immediately. They stack. Each one is survivable alone. Together, they form pressure the system can only absorb temporarily, which is why everything still looks fine, for now. But absorption has a shelf life. Margins run out, inventories clear, credibility either holds or it doesn't, and when one layer fails, it pulls the others with it. The first layer is already thinning. Now the pace changes. Job creation slows, not stops, slows. 55,000 jobs a month. Used to be 3 times that. Investment pauses. Not because companies are weak, because they don't know the rules. Inventories shrink. Pre-tariff stock sells through. Margins thin. Prices don't jump yet. They twitch. Food first, then appliances, then everything that crosses a border before it reaches you. Federal payrolls drop, 270,000 jobs erased. Quietly, systematically. None of this triggers panic. That's the problem. Because panic is corrective. This is paralysis. Cash gets hoarded. Expansion waits. Hiring freezes without layoffs. And underneath all of it, expectations shift. Just enough. Inflation isn't here. But belief in control is weaker. Markets don't scream when that happens. They reposition, and once repositioning starts, it doesn't reverse on command. The system hasn't broken, but it has started choosing defense over growth. And that choice is contagious. This is the point where the system reaches into your life, not dramatically, incrementally. You notice it when prices feel less predictable, when the same grocery run costs a little more, but not enough to make the news. When repairs get delayed because parts take longer. When your employer stops talking about expansion and starts talking about efficiency. You still have a job, for now, but raises slow. Overtime dries up. Hiring freezes mean the workload spreads thinner across fewer people. And if you're nearing retirement, the numbers you've been told to trust start to feel fragile. Not wrong, just conditional. This is where anxiety replaces anger. You don't panic. You adjust, you postpone, you save more. You spend less. And when millions of people do that at once, quietly, the system tightens itself. If this feels familiar, it should, because economies don't fail when people run. They fail when people brace. If this analysis is helping you see the pattern before it becomes obvious, stay with me. Because what starts as personal caution doesn't stay personal. It spreads. Once the system tightens at home, it echoes outward. Trade doesn't slow evenly. It fractures. Long-standing relationships thin. Supply chains reroute not toward efficiency, but toward safety, toward countries that feel less exposed to sudden shifts, sudden pauses, sudden reversals. Capital notices this first. Money starts asking quieter questions. Where is policy stable? Where are rules predictable? Where does risk have a ceiling? When those questions don't get clear answers, money doesn't flee. It hedges. It diversifies. It stops committing long-term. That's how pressure spreads without headlines. Allies respond cautiously. Competitors respond strategically. Export markets shrink. Retaliation isn't loud. It's procedural, regulatory, slow enough to deny, sharp enough to matter. And suddenly, this isn't just about domestic prices or jobs. It's about credibility, about whether commitments last beyond a news cycle, about whether economic threats are tools or tells. Because once uncertainty becomes systemic, it doesn't respect borders. It seeps into currency expectations, into bond markets, into the assumptions that keep global trade boring. And when global trade stops being boring, volatility becomes the default. Which brings us to what happens next. From here, the system doesn't collapse. It chooses, not consciously, structurally. There are three paths forward. The first is adjustment. Costs surface slowly, prices rise, but predictably. Policy stabilizes, credibility holds just enough, growth cools without breaking. This is the soft landing everyone